Hi everyone, Megan here from the James School of Dance Arts. I'm going to be talking to you today about some ballet facing body position terminology, and then after we talk about that, I'm going to talk about some basic theater terminology. So let me share my screen with you, and we'll get started talking about the ballet position facing terminology. Okay. So the basics, devant means anything to the front. So this is anything you do with your legs or your arms that are in front of you can be referenced as devant. À la seconde is directly to the side. This is anything you do with your legs to the side. Derrière is anything to the back, like an arabesque or a tendu, anything that's directly behind you or almost behind you is derrière. Croisé means crossed. So this is where this is in reference to our legs. It's when our legs look crossed to the audience. Effacé is exactly the opposite of croisé. This is where our legs appear open to the audience. Écarté is different than effacé and croisé. It's where our legs look separated. So we're not in a croisé or effacé position. This is a special one that I think will make more sense when I show it here in 1 second. And à la quatrième is directly front or back. So think like a fourth position. Your foot is either directly in front of you or directly behind you. Quatre meaning four. So thinking like a fourth position. Same thing with second. À la seconde meaning second. So think like a second position. So then we can combine these terms, which is what we most often use in ballet, and it's also used in other forms of dance as a reference. So anything in our front space, so we have our front space and then we have our back space. So we can combine the terms. We have croisé devant. This is crossed and in front of you. We have en face devant. This is directly facing front, or à la quatrième devant. We have écarté devant. This is split, open, but in front. And then we have effacé devant. This is open and in front. Then we have à la seconde, which doesn't fit into the front or back. It's just directly side. So then for the back, we have croisé derrière. This is crossed and to the back. We have en face derrière or à la quatrième derrière. This is directly facing front, but your leg is to the back. We have écarté derrière. This is split and to the back. And effacé derrière, open and to the back. So now you can see all of these body facings here on this little picture I put on this slide. Now I'm going to show you them. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. All right. So I'll show you with a tendu, just to keep things simple. But you can do them with a dégagé, a grand battement, a développé. Anything with your leg you can do. It's just easiest to show with the tendu. So I'm starting in croisé. This is a croisé position because my foot is crossed in front of the other. So if you're the audience in this case, my legs appear crossed. So if I do a tendu, my legs are still crossed and we're in croisé devant. This is en face devant. I'm directly facing front and my leg is in my front space in front of me. So en face devant, also called à la quatrième devant. We have écarté devant. This one, my legs are split open, but my leg is still tendu in my front space. So écarté devant. Then we have effacé devant. My legs are open to the audience and my leg is in a tendu in front. So it's effacé devant. When I say front here, I mean front as in my front space. So if I hold my arms out to the side, anything that is in this space in front of me. Anything that is in the space behind me is derrière. So it's like you want to imagine if you were to have a box taped on the ground. Anything in the front half of that box is devant. Anything in the back half of that box is derrière. So then we have the same thing to the back. Right now I'm standing in a croisé. This would be a croisé derrière because my foot is tendu and back, but my legs are still crossed. This would be a en face derrière or à la quatrième derrière because my hips, my shoulders, I'm facing directly front. My leg is still behind me. This is an effacé derrière. My legs are open and my leg is behind me. And then an écarté derrière. My legs are split, but this is still in my back space. So écarté is a little bit confusing because your leg is actually tenduing to the side, but we shift our body facing so that it's either in the front space for écarté devant, be like this, or écarté derrière. So now I'm going to show you in a little tendu combination that hits all of these positions. So we have tendu croisé devant, tendu en face devant, or à la quatrième devant, tendu écarté devant, tendu effacé devant, tendu à la seconde, this is directly side, tendu effacé derrière, tendu en face derrière, or à la quatrième derrière, tendu croisé derrière. And then we can reverse. Croisé derrière, en face derrière, or à la quatrième derrière, tendu écarté derrière, tendu effacé derrière, à la seconde, effacé devant, en face devant, and croisé devant. And those are all of your body position facings in ballet. Now I'm going to show you on the other side, the same tendu combination. Tendu devant, croisé, en face devant, or à la quatrième devant, écarté devant, effacé devant, à la seconde. Effacé derrière, en face derrière, or à la quatrième derrière, and croisé derrière. And then we reverse. Croisé derrière, en face derrière, or à la quatrième derrière, écarté derrière, effacé derrière, à la seconde, effacé devant, en face devant, or à la quatrième devant, and croisé devant. And those are our ballet body position facings. Now I'll share my screen again and we'll talk about some theater terminology. Okay. Oops. So theater spacing. So we often split the theater into different quadrants or different three-piece sections. Downstage, which is often abbreviated as just DS, if it's like in writing, is the closest part to the audience. So this is towards the audience, the front half of the stage. Upstage, towards the backdrop, away from the audience. Stage right is if you were the dancer standing on stage facing the audience, your right. Stage left would be your left if you're the dancer standing on stage facing the audience. So this is opposite if you're the audience. If you're the audience's left is actually stage right, and the audience's right is actually stage left. So the stage right, stage left terminology refer to the performer's perspective as if they're standing on stage facing out towards the audience. The apron of the stage is the curved part that goes out a little bit in front. Not all stages have this. Some stages just are straight in the front, but a lot of stages will have an apron which curves out a little dome shape in the front. The proscenium is basically the start of this little dome shape. So you go down stage and then you reach the proscenium and then you have the apron of the stage. The orchestra pit is where the orchestra, the band, the musicians go. Not every stage has this, but a lot of stages do. You need it if you're gonna have a live orchestra. So this is just the part that dips down. It comes in more downstage of the apron and the proscenium. Usually it'll dip down like 5 or 6 feet at least if the stage is risen up above the orchestra pit. And then if it's like a really big theater, it could go down maybe like 15, 20, 30 feet, depending on how big the theater is. This is also just called the pit sometimes. You don't want to fall in it. That would hurt very bad going off the front of the stage. So that's the orchestra pit or the pit. The fourth wall is the imaginary wall that separates the audience from the performer. So we have 3 sort of actual walls on stage. We have stage right, stage left, and then the upstage wall or the curtain. The fourth wall is the imaginary wall that would be on the farthest downstage part of the stage. We often use this term to talk about engaging with the audience or projecting your voice out towards the audience or projecting emotion out towards the audience. We'll say things like project towards your fourth wall or look out at the fourth wall, something like that. And that's just in reference to like getting through the wall, the imaginary wall that's between the audience and the performer. That's the fourth wall. Spike tape is often used to mark anything that's tricky on stage. So any prop moving or any like mark lineup that dancers need to be in, or actors, musicians, whatever it is. Anything that people need a little help with remembering or placing a prop, different spacing formations will be marked with spike tape. This is brightly colored tape typically. It comes in an assortment of colors, and different colors will be used to mark different things if they're all being used in the same show. So it could be like lime green is used to mark this dance, and then hot pink is used to mark another dance. Or if it's for an individual person, the blue spike tape is for me, Megan, and the red spike tape is for, you know, another dancer or something. So that you can delineate for what the spike tape is for. Glow tape is tape that glows. It glows in the dark, and it looks just sort of like yellowy, lime greeny, not in the dark. And this is used to mark things that you could run into backstage. So say, for example, there's a like a cord or a wire that runs along the ground to connect the lights. But we don't want to trip over this if we're running off stage quickly. So it will often be marked with glow tape. Glow tape can also be used on the stage, similar to spike tape, if for some reason you need the spikes to glow. So that's some theater terminology. Here is a picture of the upstage, downstage. So here we have the apron that I talked about, the curved part of the downstage. So the audience would be out here. And then we have the proscenium, which is this dotted line here. We have downstage, which is closer to the audience, upstage, which is closer to the curtain. And then sometimes people use center stage as a term to just mark the center. We have stage right and stage left. So these are some terms that we use mostly in dancing. I don't know if we use them as much in musical theater or in like plays and stuff. But for dancing, we often use center, center mark, quarter mark, and eighth mark to know our spacing in the stage. So center is exactly in the center of the stage. I'll show you on this little thing. It would be right about there where my cursor is. And that is marked with a plus sign. So with tape, it's a plus sign. Center mark is also in the center, except it's marked at the very front of the stage, typically on the proscenium line or just in front of the proscenium line. So that would be right here. And it's marked with a big T. So it's marked with a capital T like this. And then we have quarter mark, which is halfway between the center mark and the wing, or the center mark and the farthest stage right or stage left. That would be, so if here's center, quarter mark would be about here and here. And then we have eighth mark, which is between quarter mark and center, and between quarter mark and the wing, or far stage left, far stage right. So if we have our center here, where my cursor is, we have our quarter mark here, we're gonna have an eighth mark here and an eighth mark here. Same thing on this side. If we have our center mark here, our quarter mark is going to be here. Our eighth mark is going to be in between the center and the quarter, and also between quarter and far stage right. And that is usually marked with an I, a capital I, not a T. So this is what it usually looks like at the front of the Marley. It's a T for the quarter marks and a bigger T for the center mark, and then just an I for the eighth marks, typically. Some more about theater terminology, just some lighting terms. These are really good to know. If you're in the theater, you can know what people are talking about. And if you ever choreograph a dance or are in a play or something, you'll know what the people backstage are talking about when you hear these. The light boom, this is those, they're metal and they stand up and they hold the lights that are on the side of the stage in the wings. So that's called a light boom. and it stands up, and you don't want to run into this when you're running off stage. So that's a light boom. In the light boom, we have the shin light, the mid light, and the high light. So this is exactly what it sounds like. A shin light is at your shin, like you're on your leg. It's about that height. A mid light is about at your waist, and a high light is about at your head or even higher. Sometimes the light booms will have like 3 lights in them. Sometimes they'll have 4 or 5 lights in them. But usually they have at least 3, in which case we reference them, the shin light, the mid light, and the high light. And those are in the wings, in the light booms. The floor light is, these are lights that just sit on the floor. They can also be in the wing. They can be on the apron of the stage. They can be in the corner of the stage. Any light that sits on the floor used to light the stage is called a floor light. A top light is any light that comes directly from above, or directly in front and above. So this is just any light that's on top of you. A spotlight is a light that can be moved to follow you wherever you go on stage, and it's usually leaves a circle spot on the ground. A gobo, this is a fun one. A gobo are these little things that we slip into lights so that they leave patterns on the ground. So this could be like you slip in, it's like a little film or like a little metal piece that goes in front of the light so that it casts the shadow on the ground. So this could be like you slip in a gobo in order to make the light on the stage look like it has fall leaves on the ground, or look like it has a bunch of vertical lines, or look like it has a bunch of separate window pane pieces. This is what a gobo is. It's just the little thing that you insert in front of the stage light so that it casts a shadow on the ground and creates a shadow-like appearance on the ground in some different shape. Gels. Gels are the things that slip in front of the stage lights and create the color. So these are like the red gels, the blue gels, the yellow gels, and they create different stage lighting colors. A runner. A runner, there are 2 different meanings for a runner in theater terminology, stage terminology, but when it's referred to as lighting, a runner is a large metal bar that is above the stage, and it runs directly across. And what this does is it holds the lights. It holds the top lights, essentially. And it can also hold different backdrops and stuff. So the runner is just basically just a really firm steel bar that's on top of the stage, or hung above the stage, and we can hang things from it, like a backdrop or a curtain or whatever. It's basically like a giant curtain rod. And you can also attach lights to it. This is called a runner because it runs across the stage. A light board, the light board is basically the giant keypad that a lighting designer will use to punch all of the different things in to make the lights go on different times, to set up different light cues, to switch from one dance to the next, things like that. That's the light board. It looks really fancy, kind of sci-fi, has a bunch of buttons on it. That's the light board. A ghost light is a light that, this has some history attached to it here. It stays on in the theater at all times. It's usually a blue light or a purplish blue light. Sometimes it's white or yellow, but it's typically like a light blue or purple light. The reason being because it's backstage, usually off stage, backstage, and purple light and blue light off stage don't show up on stage as much as like a yellow light or a white light would. So the ghost light is a blue light or purple light that's off stage. It serves several purposes. One of the purposes is it helps with quick changes and like prop changes and stuff like that. Everything that needs to go on off stage, it provides light for that in sort of an inobtrusive way because you can't really see it. The audience can't see it from the stage. It's just sort of the blue-purple light makes it blend in better. The reason it's called a ghost light is because it stays on all the time. It also, in terms of like the history of theater and performance and dance, It never is turned off, even when nobody is in the theater, sort of to symbolize that we're always going to come back to the theater. It just is like, it's like the pilot light. It always stays on no matter what, to symbolize that the theater is going to keep going and we're going to return to the theater to perform. So it's kind of cool. That's the ghost light. House lights are the lights that are just like your basic everyday lighting that are above the audience. And we turn those on at intermission so the audience knows that it's time to get up, and they're on before and after the show. And then they're dimmed and turned completely off when the show's going on. Those are the house lights. Okay, some important theater people or positions. The stage manager. The stage manager is in charge of running everything backstage, and they're also in charge of all of the cues. So if there's a lighting cue or a prop cue or a backdrop change cue, anything like that, the stage manager is typically in charge of it. If the stage manager isn't in charge of it, then the assistant stage manager is in charge of it. Then we have the lighting designer. The lighting designer is the person who knows how the colors of the lights work and knows how to operate the light board, which I talked about on the previous slide. That's the lighting designer. They design all of when the lights go up, when the lights go down, which colors to blend in the lights, if they're going to use a gobo or not. That's what the lighting designer does. And they work in conjunction with the assistant stage manager and the stage manager. And they also typically work the light board during a show. So they're the one pressing the cues for all the buttons to go, or pressing the buttons for all of the different cues to go. The stage manager is the one who's calling all of those cues. So the stage manager will like have a headset on and be talking to the lighting designer and say, cue number 127, go now. And then the lighting designer will press that cue on the light board and the lights will change. So that's the lighting designer and stage manager and assistant stage manager. A runner, this is different from the runner that we just talked about that goes above the stage that holds the lights and backdrops and stuff. This runner refers to the person who sometimes actually has to run between the dressing rooms and backstage. So the runner is someone who's typically on a headset, and they'll be able to talk to the stage manager and assistant stage manager if the stage manager or assistant stage manager should need anything, or anyone is like not ready backstage for their cue. So the stage manager would be like, okay, I need a runner to go get Sophie. I need a runner to go get John, to go get this person from the dressing room because they need to be on stage in a minute or something. So they're running back and forth between the dressing room and backstage typically. Crew or tech. These are people who sort of like do the grunt work. They change the gels in the lights. They lay down the Marley. They help with the lighting and stuff. They basically do anything that needs to be done backstage, and they're directed by the stage manager, assistant stage manager, and lighting designer. So they're sort of the stage manager is the boss, and the assistant stage manager obviously is the assistant to the boss, and the lighting designer is also a boss, and they all work in conjunction to direct the crew and tech people. You can use those interchangeably to do what they need to do to make the show go on. Crew or tech people also help with like quick changes. Front house manager is someone who manages the front house. I don't think I had a bullet point on here about it, but the front house is the place where the audience waits before they come into the theater. It's where they buy refreshments, they buy souvenirs, all that stuff. That's the front house. And it has a front house manager. And then the props, costumes, and dresser people. This is pretty self-explanatory. They manage the props. They design the costumes. They do your fittings for costumes, and they help you get dressed into your costume. And that's it. So I'm going to stop my share now. I hope that was informative for you about the ballet body position facings, which can be used in other dance styles besides ballet. They sort of just go all around and are helpful terms. And then the basic theater terminology, so that next time we get into a theater, you'll know a little bit better about what we're talking about. All right, guys, thanks. I'll see you later.